and he was presumed innocent.
And thank you for, I just want a simple answer because we are limited on time. I disagree with you. I don't think you did. Your office secretly subpoenaed and got records of members of Congress. And you kept those subpoenas hidden through non-disclosure orders. That's wrong. They should have known. You want to do that, fine, it's wrong. Number one, it's wrong because people have a right, the American public has a right to know, the elected officials have a right to know. It's your right to subpoena them, but they should know. Secondly, and I brought this up before, not one Democrat, it's all Republicans, all Republicans. Everything you've done, everything you've ever done is always against Republicans. Do you think that puts more trust in the system when you're so partisan in that way? Yes or no?
No, politics played no role in our investigation. I have prosecuted Republicans and Democrats throughout my career. I have dismissed cases against Republicans and Democrats.
Because you didn't have the proof. If prosecutors routinely rely on politically imbalanced investigations, and by this I mean, let me appeal to your sense of fairness. You're saying you're a fair man. We had a January 6th committee, select committee, that was appointed only by a Democrat, the then Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. Everybody on it was a Democrat, except 2 Republicans that hated Republicans. Was that fair? Was that fair? I mean, look at our system here in Congress. We've got Democrats, man, they speak up. You've got Republicans, we speak up. You hear both sides. That's the way a select committee should be. And you based everything upon this biased, unfair, prejudiced system. How is that fair? Tell me how that's fair.
That's not correct. We conducted an independent investigation.
You based a lot on that commission. You got all their records.
That's not correct. We did collect their records. We conducted our own independent investigation following the facts and the law. The reality
and you used a lot of their information, Mr. Smith. I don't mean to cut you off. I've got limited time. Joe Biden took classified records that were not to be taken when he was vice president and when he was Senate. And I know you didn't deal directly with that case.
Mr. Chairman?
But nevertheless, he did. Is that fair? Because he let him go, don't do anything to him. But on the other hand, when it's President Trump who did it as president, then there was, you raided Mar-a-Lago. Is that fair?
I'm the gentleman.
Mr.
Gentleman's part of this.
Well, I'd like him to answer.
If the witness would like to respond, he can.
I have no response.
It's damn unfair. That's the answer.
We've got UC requests.
UC request from the gentlelady from California.
Yes, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record the government's sentencing memorandum for Capitol rioter Cody Mattis, who said that, quote, when the former president asked his supporters to march on the Capitol, it was not a call to peacefully and patriotically make your voice
Objection.
heard, but to storm and seize the building.
And I've got one, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman's recognized.
This is a press release from Congressman Jeff Van Drew's statement on storming the Capitol building, calling it unacceptable, un-American, and disrespectful of democracy.
Without objection, the chair now recognizes the gentleman from Illinois.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Smith, for being here today. Let's remember why we're here today. Donald Trump incited an insurrection in 2020 because he refused to accept that he lost that election. And then he took classified documents with him and put them in Mar-a-Lago. Republicans support impunity for criminals, not accountability. There's no clearer example than that of the blanket pardon of nearly 1,600 insurrectionists on day one of this disgraceful presidency. Trump pardoned people convicted of seditious conspiracy who brutalized police officers. There are 4 of them who can testify to that here, and who wanted to kill Vice President Pence. People who've committed more crimes since the insurrection: sexual assault, child molestation, aggravated kidnapping. That's who Trump pardoned, and that's whose side Republicans are on. They may not want to, but they are, because they refuse to tell the truth. Mr. Smith, let me ask you something. Does pardoning violent rioters who brutalized law enforcement officers, spray peppering them, tasering them, beating them up, kicking them, smashing them in door frames, make our country safer?
Absolutely not.
As a prosecutor, can you describe why these pardons make our communities less safe and undermine our criminal legal system more broadly?
The people who assaulted police officers and were convicted after trial, in my view, and I think in the view of the judges who sentenced them to prison, are dangers to their community. As you've mentioned, some of these people have already committed crimes against their communities again, and I think all of us, if we're reasonable, know that there's going to be more crimes committed by these people in the future. I do not understand why you would mass pardon people who assaulted police officers. I don't get it. I never will.
That's exactly right. And none of this is a coincidence. The entire purpose of the Republican Party, unfortunately, has become to help criminals and corporate interests evade accountability. Republicans want impunity, not accountability. They want impunity for the January 6th people, for the classified documents case, for the Epstein files, for billionaires and big corporations, and for terror that DHS is sowing on our streets. The Gestapo tactics by ICE and CBP are the obvious result of President Trump and the Republican Party that protect anyone who helps them turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state. Whether it's storming the Capitol to overthrow an election or murdering people in broad daylight, Republicans will back you if you back their political mafia and racketeering operation. That's why Democrats must fight for accountability through oversight, through legislation, evidence collection, and through prosecution for the openly criminal acts that we're seeing in our communities every day. Democracy doesn't exist without
Frank?
accountability.
It's
but you got to have a
difficult to
spine.
watch.
I thank you, Mr. Smith, for doing your part.
Especially a
Our
guy like
community,
this.
Our fight continues for accountability, not for impunity. Thank you, and I yield back.
May I have a
Mr. Chairman, I would yield to the gentleman from New York.
Mr. Smith, I just want to take a minute and allow you to explain why you requested the toll records of those officials for January 6th.
For the January 6th investigation, you mean,
Yeah.
correct? With regard to the toll records that were subpoenaed regarding the period of the 4th, I think it was to the 7th, we had evidence that the president had directed Rudy Giuliani, one of his co-conspirators, to contact members of Congress to try to further delay the proceedings and exploit the violence that happened in the Capitol. We had evidence that those calls had happened. We wanted to get more evidence of that to corroborate it for trial. That is, again, as I've mentioned earlier today, a standard part of an investigation to understand who a conspiracy is trying to reach out to, how they're trying to influence people.
And you wanted documentary confirmation.
Yes, correct.
Yield back.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Nels, is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, I'll just cut right to the chase here. Your investigation and attempted prosecution of President Trump, it wasn't about justice. It was about politics. Politics.
Jack Smith is
From
not
day
looking
one,
good.
Under the Biden-Harris DOJ, you weaponized
He's getting
the law
absolutely
to
harangued by
go
the Republicans.
after
The
their top
Democrats, of
political
course,
opponents.
just glaze them. That's all they can
You
do.
push flawed legal theories, and even the far left, Washington Post, called you out. They called you out, sir, for violating the First Amendment. You tried to criminalize political speech, slap unlawful gag orders on a presidential candidate, and spy on Republican members of Congress in violation of the speech or debate clause, including the sitting Speaker of the House. Mr. Smith, you mishandled documents, pressured defense lawyers, and dumped a massive trove of so-called evidence right before the election, and you did it to sway voters. That's why you did it. And don't get me started on that raid at Mar-a-Lago or your unconstitutional appointment, which a federal judge in Florida rightly tossed out. A very bad day for you.
Yep.
This
In a lot of
wasn't,
other
Mr.
cases
Smith,
that he has
about
not won
upholding the law.
or been
It
overturned.
was about tearing down President Trump and anyone close to him. You even tried to ram through a politically motivated final report after your cases collapsed, including the Presidential Transition Act and basic fairness. But here's the good part, America, here's the good part. The American people saw right through it. They rejected, sir, your witch hunt loud and clear in November, handing President Trump a commanding victory. The voters spoke loud and clear. They wanted an end to the weaponization of our justice system. In your opening statement, you spoke about proof of beyond a reasonable doubt. Mr. Smith, I will give you proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Donald Trump winning the popular vote by over 2 million votes. The Electoral College by 85 votes.
Probably a lot, Josh.
With every single swing state. Now, sir,
And
that
believe me,
is proof
they've been pointing it
beyond a
out all
reasonable
day.
doubt that the crap you were shoveling did not pass the smell test with the American people. To put it bluntly, Mr. Smith, the stink remains on you. And lastly, I would like to quickly address the police officers of January 6th. Mr. Dunn, Mr. Fanone, Mr. Gonell, Mr. Hodges. I'm a member of the new select committee to actually examine what happened that day. And I can tell you, gentlemen, that the fault does not lie with Donald Trump. It lies with Yogananda Pittman and the U.S. Capitol leadership team. We know they had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. Claim my time, yeah.
You will be in order. The time belongs to the gentleman from Texas. We've had some disruptions already. We don't need that. Let the gentleman may continue.
We know the Capitol leadership team, specifically Yogananda Pittman, had the intelligence, and there was going to be a high propensity for violence that day. And the Capitol itself was the target. We knew the extremist groups were going to be there. And why do I say that? It was your own report from your intelligence section, the IICD, which was run by Pittman, in the January 3rd special events section. It was in it. It was in it. And Mr. Dunn, I believe that you thought that day would be like just any other. In your testimony to the January 6th committee, you said you found out how ugly was going to get on a cell phone. Somebody sent you some information on social media.
The guy with the tattoos on his neck, he's the one who did some fake sneeze. He's a scumbag cop.
And that's because your leadership failed to share the intelligence with you. It was their fault, folks. It was their fault. It was not President Trump. And we are going to expose it for the first time because the Benny Thompson, the sham committee didn't do it.
Will the gentleman yield for a question?
The sham committee didn't do it. The report is 845 pages. Donald Trump's name is mentioned 4,207 times. We know what the committee wanted to do is to not allow Donald Trump to come back and win again. And they failed miserably. And I hope you now can see that. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the balance to my distinguished colleague out of Jersey.
I just want to quickly go over something because we keep rewriting history. The president said peacefully and patriotically. What don't we understand about peacefully and patriotically? He asked for the National Guard. That was ignored.
That was ignored.
Yes, Speaker Pelosi.
That's exactly right.
What don't we understand that?
Will the gentleman yield for a question? Are you saying Nancy Pelosi controls the National Guard?
Wait a minute.
The president
She said it was her own
National
fault.
Guard if
She
he wanted
admitted
to, and you know that.
Claim my time. I lost some of my time.
Time belongs to the gentleman from New Jersey. You have a few more seconds.
And finally, how many elected officials say we're going to fight to win an election? It's terminology used all the time, seriously. And of course, if they were guilty, they should be prosecuted. The problem was there were many in the mix.
The unanimous consent. Gentleman yields back. The
And last thing,
back.
your hand gestures, Mr. Fanone. You need medication.
Expired. The time of gentleman expired.
The Facone, the guy is really mentally ill. Very mentally
is
ill.
recognized for unanimous consent.
Apparently
Thank you,
an
Mr. Chairman. I have
alcoholic.
2 unanimous consent requests to enter into the record 2 articles.
Lady can proceed.
An article dated December 29, 2025, titled Wall Street Journal Editorial Board Calls Out MAGA's
We
Latest
got tattoos
2020
on his
Stolen
neck. I mean, give me a
Election
break.
Nonsense.
Objection.
And the second article, an article dated December 23, 2025, titled Fact Check. Fulton County's 315,000 unsigned early votes are not proof of electoral fraud.
Without objection, the gentleman from Illinois is recognized for unanimous
Fanone,
consent.
Michael Fanone.
Thank you, Chairman. Under unanimous consent, I ask to enter into the record the Judiciary Democrats' January 2026 report titled, Where are they now? The perpetrators of January 6th and the defenders of democracy who stopped them, which profiles the illustrious career trajectories of some of the key actors from January 6th
Okay.
who were pardoned by Donald Trump.
Okay.
And secondly,
Yeah, Fanone was a J6 cop, or a Capitol Police, and he's the one that's been hijacked by the left to be basically their front man to say how, he was, beaten by the J6 protesters and everything. But it turns out this guy is a real dirtbag, and obviously with the kind of games that he's playing right now. Thank you, Joey, I appreciate it. Doing the fake sneeze and yelling bullshit and during sneezing and all that kind of stuff. He's picking fights with people in the crowd. It's nuts.
And we have important elections coming up, and the people want them to happen, and they want them to be fair. And the one person who should be telling the truth about elections
I don't have a problem with tattoos, but this guy's
But Donald Trump
he looks like a
has
gangbanger.
not,
It's
and
crazy.
is still not telling the truth about the 2020 elections. In fact, there is a January 6th page on the taxpayer-funded White House website that says the election was stolen from Trump, a blatant, disproven lie he knows is totally false. So one of my Republican colleagues earlier brought up Trump's mind state, that he knew he lost, and he knew that what he was saying was untrue, but that you had no proof. So, Mr. Smith, what evidence did you develop to suggest Trump knew he had lost the 2020 election?
We had evidence from a variety of sources, evidence from people who were close to Donald Trump and who he relied on, people who wanted him to win the election, people who were employed by his campaign to help him win the election. Our evidence is that this was a conspiracy and that Donald Trump specifically sought to prey on party loyalty. Our investigation involved interviewing and subpoenaing records of Republicans because that's who Donald Trump sought to prey on to stay in office. And the reality is certain people refused to do that. The vice president refused to go along with that. People in various states' legislatures refused to go along with that. And the reality is that if we took this case to trial, a good number of our witnesses would be Republicans. If a Democrat had committed these crimes, had done these things, I would have subpoenaed a number of Democrats. I would have subpoenaed their records.
And I'm going to ask you about
You
that.
wouldn't.
But correct, it's not like he was calling Nancy Pelosi. So why is it legally important to know that Trump knew he was lying when he said the election was stolen?
That was part of our proof at trial, and it was relevant to the charges, specifically to the first charge to defraud the United States. It is permissible for someone to lie, but when they use speech to commit a crime, to facilitate a crime, that is not protected by the First Amendment. The Supreme Court has been very clear on that, and this very issue was litigated in the case. The defense raised this very issue. And one thing I want to be clear about today, the case that I investigated and the case we had, it was built to be tried in a courtroom, not in the media. Our case was built to withstand the crucible of litigation, and our assessment was that we had proof beyond a reasonable doubt that would do that.
So what I heard you say is that when you lie, and you know you're lying, and then you act on that lie to overturn the democratic process, that is a felony. A January 6er actually said, if I can't trust him, then who can I trust? Exactly. You know, we cannot even trust our own president. And in fact, there's so many other things that you can say that you're not allowed to say because a Trump-appointed judge sealed the documents, refusing to release the files yet again, which is why we could probably ask you far more questions if those were unsealed. So I know I don't have that much time. I want to now shift to these allegations from my Republican colleagues about the collection of phone records of Republican senators. I guess some of the ones that were trying to get $500,000 of taxpayer dollars. So many of the phone records of members were requested before you were appointed as special counsel, yes or no? That's true? Is that accurate?
Yes,
Yeah.
some subpoenas occurred before I was special counsel.
And what do you say to those who claim you chose to target Republicans because you only collected phone records for Republicans?
The conspiracy I was investigating targeted Republicans.
Right.
As I mentioned earlier.
That's right. And so you would have requested any relevant call records necessary for your investigation of a Republican or of a Democrat?
That's correct. And to be clear, if a Democrat committed these acts, we would have sought those. I could just add one thing. We interviewed Rudy Giuliani in the course of this investigation, and we asked him, why did you, in one of the voicemails he left for the senator, mention the fact that it was Republicans that you were reaching out to? And he said, because the Democrats weren't going to help us, and even some Republicans wouldn't help us. And so our evidence shows repeatedly that the plan was to see if you could prey on people's party loyalty.
Time of the gentlelady's expired. The gentlelady from...
Thank you, I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentlelady from Wyoming is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Smith, it was during your deposition with our committee that you revealed that you tasked your team, specifically J.P. Cooney, to engage with the partisan January 6th committee.
Sassy. It really
you
is.
had to have known at the time the controversy
It is
surrounding this
about
committee,
class.
including the fact that all of the members had been appointed by Nancy Pelosi, who disallowed the Republicans from being able to engage. Yet you proceeded anyway, raising numerous questions as to your strategy for conspiring with the J6 committee. You had every possible resource
Another
available
good point,
to you.
Roger.
Your prosecution of President Trump was clearly a priority for the Biden administration, and it is clear that you had an unlimited budget. And you also left no stone unturned, even subpoenaing records from sitting members of the House and Senate. So what information could the J6 committee possess that you and the nation's top law enforcement agency could not obtain on your own?
I did request J.P. Cooney.
What did they have that you couldn't obtain on your own?
In any investigation, you would,
What information did they have that you were not able to obtain on your own?
I couldn't know that until I had their information.
Was there anything there? Did you find that they had information that you were not able to obtain?
I don't recall specifically every bit of information. What I can tell you is we took in their information because we wanted to collect any information that could be relevant. We made our own independent assessment of the evidence.
Okay, so from the time that you were appointed as special counsel up to the date of your resignation in January of 2025, did you personally have any contact with any members, staff, or contractors of the House's January 6th Select Committee, and if so, who?
I do not believe I had contact with anybody personally from the January
Okay.
Select
The
Committee.
January 6th committee failed to archive or preserve its video recordings of witness interviews, deleting or destroying as many as 900 interview summaries or transcripts involving more than 1 full terabyte of digital data. I repeat, the J6th committee destroyed evidence. Let that sink in. Why would they do such a thing? I think we have a dang good idea. The committee actually used selective clips from these videos and transcripts during their hearings, and yet by destroying this evidence, they have denied Congress and the public the ability to obtain their full content and context. They created their narrative by selective use of the evidence before them, so how very convenient. Did you or your team receive any of those witness transcripts or video recordings of transcribed interviews from the Select Committee that were not released to the public?
What I can tell you is that I requested J.P. Cooney to contact the Select Committee.
Do you know if you received any of the evidence or testimony that the J6 Committee eventually destroyed?
I don't have any information that the J6 Committee
You don't know
destroyed
one
any
way or
evidence.
the other as you sit here today.
No, what I'm telling you is that I requested all the information we could get from the January 6th.
Has all of the information that you requested been preserved all of the information from the J6 committee? Has that been preserved?
The thing is, Peter, we would
information
not
that
get
we
an ACA
requested and
replacement
received,
from
we
the
reviewed it.
Democrats.
It was
Has it
part
been
of our-
preserved?
Actually,
Yes, as part
Thank
of our
you.
files.
Promised
Were
it.
you or your team advised, or did you get the impression from anyone affiliated
would've
with the
remained the
January
same
6th
either
committee
way.
that these documents were not for public release, even though portions of them had already been shown to the American people? Were you advised to keep any of the information from the J6 committee confidential?
As I sit here right now, I don't recall that.
Okay.
I recall,
Did the J6 committee provide you with the Cassidy Hutchinson testimony as part of the trove of documents that you received?
as I sit here now, I don't recall, but it would.
Well,
be very
you're familiar with her testimony, aren't you?
I am, and
And in fact, wouldn't you agree with me that Ms. Hutchinson's testimony, especially the most explosive allegations made, was comprised of hearsay upon hearsay upon hearsay?
there-
Come on, you're an attorney, Mr. Smith, you can answer the question. Of course it was hearsay.
There was.
And hearsay isn't admissible in a court of law, is it? Why? Because it is inherently unreliable, and the victim or the target of a prosecution is not able to cross-examine. Isn't that correct? In fact, Mr. Smith, if you had attempted to walk into court with Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony, you would have been thrown out on your ear. No judge, no legitimate judge would have ever allowed the testimony of Cassidy Hutchins to be admitted in a court of law, would they?
of Cassidy Hutchins, who lied about Donald Trump
and then
taking the
we've already
wheel.
talked
I
about
believe
your
that's who
record.
that was.
So
Mr.
I
Chairman,
can
the gentlelady's
understand
time has
Correct
long
me if I'm
since
wrong,
expired.
but
time of the
she had
gentlelady,
said that
is,
Donald Trump grabbed the wheel of
the
the
gentleman from
presidential
Florida.
Can I
limousine.
do one UC request first?
Gentleman is recognized.
This is from factcheck.org.
Peter, it did not lower prices, dude.
Rehashes old
When it
false
went
claim
into effect,
that
you lied
J6
about
committee
everything. It didn't
destroyed
lower
evidence
prices. You
from
couldn't keep
October
your doctor.
15,
Nothing
2024.
worked.
And this is from the District of Columbia
was
National
way
Guard
worse
website
when Obama put it
stating that
into
this is
effect.
the only National Guard unit in America which reports exclusively and only to the president.
Without objection, the gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we're definitely not in a court of law today. Half this shit wouldn't come in if we were. I mean, good God. You know? I want to talk about something one of my colleagues, Mr. Nell, said from Texas. He sits on this new January 6th subcommittee, which I also happen to sit on. And he said the same thing in the subcommittee the other week, that it wasn't President Trump that inspired January 6th, right? It wasn't him. He said in the subcommittee that it was actually Ray Epps. Ray Epps. He was the one who told people to break the law and the windows and the doors and to beat police officers and hang Mike Pence and try to break into the floor of the House and wiping feces on the walls. It was all this guy, Ray Epps, right? So who is Ray Epps? Why is he so powerful? So, I mean, I just did a quick, Google search of Ray Epps, and his Wikipedia page says the powerful Ray Epps is a wedding planner to the Oath Keepers. This is the wedding planner? That's the mastermind of January. You went from
This guy's a
Donald
dork.
Trump. It wasn't Donald. Who are we going to blame? Who could it be? How about the wedding planner to the Oath Keepers? I mean, it's just pathetic. But, my colleagues love the past, Mr. Smith. Love the past. That's why you're here before Pam Bondi. Okay? We haven't had the Attorney General here. We didn't have her last year. She's the only one in the cabinet to not come in committee of reference. But they love the past. Oh, they love talking about January 6th and Hunter Biden and COVID and Barack Obama and Hillary's emails. They love the past. These people love the past so much they're still reenacting the Civil War. Okay? Love the past.
Right now.
But they hate talking about the present. But you know what? Let's talk about the past real quick. Here are some quotes, because I heard one of my colleagues call you a hypocrite. Here are some quotes from my colleagues. Chairman Jordan, right after January 6th, stop the violence, support Capitol Police. Ted Cruz, those storming the Capitol need to stop right now. The Constitution protects but not violence. Chip Roy, today the People's House was attacked, which is an attack on the Republic itself. Steve Scalise, United States Capitol Police saved my life. Lindsey Graham, when it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand his actions were the problem. Troy Nels, oh my God, him again. I'm happy to stand shoulder to shoulder with Capitol Police. Darrell Issa, the violence and turmoil we witnessed in Washington, D.C. was completely unacceptable. Rep. McClintock, the attack on Capitol strikes the most sacred act of our democracy. and former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, whose name we heard a lot today. What did he have to say about it? Let me be clear. Last week's violence attack on the Capitol was undemocratic, un-American, and criminal. And make no mistake, those who were responsible should be brought to justice. The president bears responsibility. Period. Or exclamation point. But let's talk also about, the present. That's the past. Let's talk about the present. These are the guys who created the weaponization committee for the DOJ. So let's talk about the present. Jerome Powell facing investigation, okay? In fact, we heard about Jonathan Turley, that he's some legal messiah. Jonathan Turley calls the Jerome Powell thing legitimate concerns of retaliation. Lisa Cook, under investigation. Mark Kelly, United States Senator, under investigation. Adam Schiff, United States Senator, under investigation. Eric Swalwell, United States Representative, under investigation. Chris Christie, potentially under investigation. Jack Smith, oh, that's you, under investigation. Okay, Miles Taylor, former Chief of Staff to United States Department of Homeland Security, under investigation. Christopher Krebs, former Director of Cybersecurity, under investigation. Indicted, James Comey, Letitia James. John Bolton, it's weird that they indicted John Bolton but stole his foreign policy. Accused of crimes, former President Joe Biden, former President Barack Obama. Revoked or threatened with revocation of Secret Service protection, Kamala Harris, Hunter Biden, Ashley Biden, the daughter of President Joe Biden. Mayorkas, Mike Pompeo, Brian Hook, General Mark Milley, John Bolton, Dr. Anthony Fauci, the guy Trump gave a medal to. Security clearance revoked, Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, Jacob Sullivan, Lisa Monaco, Mark Zaid, Norman Eisen, Letitia James, Alvin Bragg, Andrew Weissman, Hillary Clinton, Liz Cheney, Kamala Harris, Adam Kinzinger, Fiona Hill, Alexander Vindman. Miles Taylor, I could keep going. Any questions about any of that? We know you don't.
But will the gentleman yield for a question?
I will, please.
Because you have a way of synthesizing that nobody else does, Mr. Moskowitz. Listening to our colleagues today, I wonder if they actually believe any of this would have happened had Donald Trump simply accepted the results of the election.
You mean like Al Gore did when he lost 5-4 at the Supreme Court?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would any of this, would the violence have happened? Would the fake counterfeit slates have happened? The threats against Vice President Pence?
No, none of it would have happened. And Leon Panetta would still have his security clearance, so would John Brennan, so would Michael Morrell, Michael Vickers. I can't get them all in, Mr. Chairman. I can't get them. I have like 4 more pages of the weaponization of the Department of Justice.
The time of the gentleman from Florida has expired. The gentleman from South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Smith, when was the initial indictment issued on President Trump? August 1st, 2023, does that sound about right?
That's in the election case. That's correct.
Correct. And on that election case, after that, you asked for a trial date when?
I don't recall as I sit here right now.
January 2024, does that sound about right?
That sounds about right.
Okay, so after the indictment, you in August, you asked for a January trial date. That's like 5 months? 5 months? How much evidence did you have? Millions of pages?
As I sit here right now, I don't recall the exact.
I think in your testimony, they talked about a number, 13 million pages. Is that a ballpark accurate number?
I think that was the question asked of me, and as I sit here, I don't have an accurate number.
So let's just assume that that's true, right? Because you had a bunch of stuff. You had $50 million that you blew through the Treasury on a trial that went nowhere. How many pages per day is that? 100,000? That sound about right?
Beef and protein prices
are
out of control.
4,100.
There's something way more sinister going on about that than there is just
70 pages.
Blaming a
Would
president.
you like to read, sir?
Tyson and Cargill were
Would you like to read?
I do.
Found to be
read 70
colluding with
pages
each
a minute?
other on price fixing when it came
I do
to
not.
beef.
I mean, that would be remarkable. So how do you prepare for a trial in 5 months if you're asking the defense counsel to read 70 pages a minute? How do you do that and prepare a defense and look at all the witness testimony and video evidence that you supposedly had? How do you do that? You know what's shocking to me, and I think that one of the most egregious aspects of this case, Mr. Smith, is that if you get a traffic ticket in Washington, D.C., you're not going to trial in 5 months. But you want the president, the former president of the United States, to have a trial date with 13 million pages of documents
This
within
is a
5
very
months.
important point.
I think that's ridiculous.
What
And I
this
think
guy
that
is bringing
speaks
up
exactly to what we talk about
is
when we examine
not only did he
not only your record,
he wanted
but
to have
the
a
things in
speedy
this
trial.
case that are
All of
deeply
this was
troubling.
going to be done
That this was not
because
the
he didn't
pursuit
they
of
didn't want
facts
Trump to be
and law
president.
and letting the
I mean,
judge and
it's
the
not,
jury decide.
You can't dispute it. It's
that
not
this
disputable
was
at
an
all.
exercise in political. It was a political
100%
hitshot,
political.
timed perfectly.
Regardless
against
of
the
what you
President of the
think
United
about
States.
Trump.
Sir, in the Florida case, in the records case, what happened ultimately in that case?
What happened ultimately in the case?
Yeah, the Mar-a-Lago records case.
Dismissed.
I'm going to answer because I don't think this is covered by Judge Cannon's order of the, we move to dismiss that case pursuant to Justice Department policy.
No, the records case in Florida.
Against Donald Trump.
The records case in Mar-a-Lago, were you ruled to be, what was the ruling in that?
That was Judge Cannon's ruling, and she ruled my appointment unlawful, and we sought to appeal that, and that appeal was pending at the time that we dismissed the cases.
So from the very beginning, were you ever confirmed by the United States Senate?
I have never been confirmed by the United States Senate. I will say that
Best
the
question so
history
far.
supporting my appointment is over 100 years old. Other special counsels.
But isn't
have
there a
been
statute on the
approved.
appointment? I mean, you have to be confirmed by the Senate. So I think that's kind of interesting. But I think the point is, from the very beginning, on the documents case and others, you weren't even lawfully appointed, and that's why Judge Cannon ruled the way that she did.
$1,000,000,000,000%.
And from the beginning, we talk about
Kajillion percent
you followed
political.
Department of Justice
Just like all
policy.
the other trials.
You followed the facts, you followed the law, you followed the Constitution. That's what you have said all throughout this day, parroted by the Democrats, that you have done nothing wrong. But from the very beginning, you weren't even lawfully, and you can't even recall who swore you in. So as we sit here today,
was funny.
based on your testimony,
You don't vote for me, then you ain't black.
Transcribed interview, can you tell
That was
us
great.
who swore you in as special prosecutor?
As I said, I know I took the oath of office. I don't recall who swore me in. What I can share with you.
I don't know, sir. Call me naive, but that's a milestone career move for you that you get to do this, and you don't remember the circumstances. I just find that a little bit odd. But here's the thing, and I'm going to wrap up quick. You're unconstitutionally appointed. You breached the 60-day rule, releasing this very partisan attack against the president right before the election. You tampered with evidence in the Mar-a-Lago case that you admitted to in court filings. You subpoenaed members of Congress and their phone records in violation of the Constitution, of current statutes. You didn't even let the court know that these were members of Congress. How are we to assume otherwise that this wasn't political? Because it absolutely was, sir. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes.
I would caution my friend from South Carolina and others against jumping into bed with Judge Cannon, who's been rebuked repeatedly by the 11th Circuit because she is completely lawless. But let's go back to the actual evidence rather than all the procedural stuff about when you were sworn in or not. I don't blame you for not remembering that. You've been probably sworn in a dozen times. It doesn't jump out at you. I want to go back to the evidence, though, that Donald Trump knew that he was lying about the election. And I'd ask you to say, if you could, specifically, who gave evidence to you that supported your conclusion that he knew that he was lying?
That came from a number of sources. It came from staff in the White House who talked to him and told him that his fraud claims were not true. It came from staff on his campaign who told him that. It came from members of the Department of Justice. It came from state officials who, when he tried to press them to do things in contravention of their oath, they refused to. They asked him for evidence and his co-conspirators, and they never provided it. Over and over again, the people who had who were best situated to know how the elections were conducted in these states, he either avoided contacting them or disregarded the clear debunkings that were provided to him such as by the Georgia Secretary of State.
Right, and I mean, that's a lot of evidence, but we know that his attorney general at the time also concluded, quote, he knew well that he lost the election, Bill Barr, and yet he incited a riot on January 6th, and 4 of the brave officers who defended the Capitol and defended my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are here today. Not a single Republican member of this
It's
committee
not something I would bring up
has
Bill Barr
recognized
because
them
Bill
or
Barr's
thanked
father
them for their service, and I would like to
hired
do so
Jeffrey
today.
Epstein
Thank you,
to
gentlemen.
work at the school that Bill
Now,
Barr's
my
father was the
colleague from
headmaster at.
California,
So it's
referred
obviously
to a couple
connected
statements from your former colleagues in
with
Penn and the
Israeli
Eastern
intelligence.
District about your impeccable reputation as an apolitical career politician. As an alum of the Southern District of New York myself, I can tell you that many of my former colleagues also feel the same, and that's saying something coming from the SDNY to the EDNY, as you know. Mr. Smith, did you ever speak to President Biden about this case?
Never.
Did you ever receive orders or direction from President Biden or anyone else in the White House about this case?
No.
Did you ever receive any direction from the Attorney General Merrick Garland regarding how you should, whether or not you should charge this case?
No, I was given the independence
I don't
to make
believe
that
that for a
decision on
second.
my own.
Do not
An
believe that
independent
for a
special
second.
counsel, exactly. I just want to point out to my colleagues who seem to think this is a politicized investigation that on February 10th, over a month, 2021, over a month after January 6th, Marco Rubio said the January 6th attack on the Capitol was far more dangerous than most realize, and we have a criminal justice system in place to address it. Who oversaw the Department of Justice on February 10th, 2021? Who was president?
February 10th, 2021. That would be Joe Biden.
So Marco Rubio wanted Joe Biden's Department of Justice to investigate Donald Trump and his January 6th insurrectionist. I want to ask you in my last few seconds, Mr. Smith, you're not the first special counsel to investigate Donald Trump. Special Counsel Mueller, also of impeccable integrity, concluded that the 2016 Trump campaign welcomed foreign interference from Russia and used it to help them. Donald Trump has made it a litmus test to be hired in this administration to say that the 2020 election was fraudulent, even though, as you have established, it was not. And now there are senior officials in this government who are responsible for protecting our elections, who have our election deniers. Can you describe in a few
Guys,
seconds
if you like listening to this, and
what
obviously
your
we got a great
concerns are
chat
about
going,
the
please
upcoming
consider
election based
sending
on your
super chats.
investigation
If
and
you
what
do
we
have
know
a
today?
question or anything that you would like to state and have me read,
I believe
you can do that
political
by
litmus
sending a
tests
super
are
chat.
not proper for
I will
career
be
prosecutors.
giving precedence over those.
I think my experience over 30 years as a prosecutor in the Department of Justice is having people who are not guided
And like
by party
Bethany
allegiance, but
said,
guided by experience.
Let's keep the insults
That's
down.
how you can trust the
And if
criminal
we're going to
justice
argue,
system.
that's totally
Same
fine.
way with
but
our election system.
Slinging
Gentlemen's
insults
time
is
is
not.
Thank you. I yield back.
It doesn't do us any good.
Gentleman
and
yields
we're not
back.
going to
Gentleman
tolerate
from
that.
Wisconsin is recognized.
Yeah. First of all, just a couple of comments. There are probably 10 people on this committee who have more conversations with 10, 15 people on this committee who have more conversations with Donald Trump than myself. But anybody who says that Donald Trump thought he won that election, that is just plain not true. No way, unless he's the best actor in the history of this building.
We agree.
Did Donald Trump believe?
Order.
Donald Trump did not believe he lost that election. He just didn't. No way. And I think on January 6th, I can't believe there were any congressmen here who didn't think Joe Biden was going to be sworn in as president. So it was a riot, but it wasn't a threat to the future of the republic. Okay. Now we should have posted up here a document for you to look at. Here we are. Okay. This is something we received with regard to Arctic frost. It's a list of about 70 names. I don't know whether or not you're familiar with the document.
I don't believe I'm familiar with this document.
Okay. The document contains just about every person who was higher up in the Donald Trump campaign. There's a little more emphasis on here on people involved in Wisconsin, but you're not familiar with the document.
I'm sorry, sir, what was your question?
Would you know what was in this document? These names, you familiar with them at all?
No, I mean, it's not that it's just not
They're
my kind
under
of
the
music,
impression
really.
that most of these people,
But I've
maybe
listened
almost
to it. It's not
all
like I
of
turn it
them,
off
were
if it's
subpoenaed
on.
by
It's
you
just
at
not
some
something-
time or other. That helps you.
Some of these
But I'll
names
listen to that,
I am familiar with. Others I'm not familiar with, or I don't recall as I sit here now.
Okay, we'll eventually submit another question for you on this later on. From the time you were appointed as special counsel to your resignation on in January 2025, did you ever have contact with the January 6th Select Committee?
I did not personally. When I became special counsel, I directed my deputy to ask the Select Committee to provide us whatever evidence they would provide us.
So you directed people to have direct contact?
I directed my deputy to make contact to collect evidence from them.
And that's J.P. Cooney?
J.P. Cooney, my deputy, correct.
Okay. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I apologize, sir. I just couldn't hear you because of the door.
I'm sorry, we had people going through here. Did you have any concern that the evidence collected by the Partisan Select Committee would be in any way tainted by politics?
I intended to conduct an independent investigation, and my goal was to collect the evidence, assess it, and consider it with all the other evidence we would collect, and make an independent determination in my investigation separate from that investigation.
I'm going to go back and ask you something on that one before, because I think I know the answer. There's a person on that list.
No, I wasn't.
By the name of Vicki McKenna, who we believe did have her records subpoenaed. Are you familiar with that name at all?
As I sit here right now, I am not familiar with that name.
Okay, thank you. With regard to part of the documents that you received was with regard to Cassidy Hutchison, right?
We requested that they give us everything they were willing to give us. As I sit here now, I don't recall if specifically her information was in there, but I'm not denying that it was. It may well have been.
Okay, we'll go back. Your team issued subpoenas to various financial institutions, telecommunications providers, and conservative entities requesting communications between them and President Trump's campaign, right?
We did issue subpoenas for various sorts of information, correct.
Okay, and the bank records, you would say, or we could describe, were fairly broad, the request?
We issued subpoenas for certain bank records as part of our investigation, yes.
Okay. Shortly after you're appointed, you issued subpoenas to state and local officials for their communications with President Trump, is that correct? And his campaign.
As I sit here now, I'm trying to recall specifically which officials, but I know we issued a number of subpoenas in our investigation to understand the communications
talking about how
between
violent Donald
President
Trump and everybody else is, but not
and
one has mentioned the two
various
assassination
entities,
attempts
including
on Trump.
state officials.
Not
One final question.
Nor have
One
any
quick
of them
final
say,
question.
you know, that's unacceptable. That should
Do you
never happen.
really believe that
None of them have
President
said
Trump
that throughout this entire
thinks
testimony.
he lost that election?
Yes.
Because they don't care.
Our
And they would have
investigation
laughed
following
about
the
it just like
facts
they
and the
did with
law
Charlie Kirk.
determined that.
No way, thank you, that's enough.
I have a unanimous
Wait.
consent
Gentleman
request.
from New York is recognized for unanimous consent.
Actually, I have two. One is to article entitled, "With AG Bondi next to him, Trump says deranged Jack Smith must be investigated." And the other is a tweet from Marco Rubio. "There is nothing patriotic about what is occurring on Capitol Hill. This is third world style anti-American anarchy."
Without objection. Gentlelady from Texas is recognized.
Can I get an extra 33 seconds?
You get your full 5 minutes.
Well, okay.
Oh, God.
It's curious because you've sat here all day, and thank you so much for showing up because this
listen
was
to
something
this.
that you wanted to do. The Republicans wanted to make sure that you were hid in a room with no cameras because I was there. They didn't really want you out public because they were afraid of what you would say, which is that you could have proven your case because you are a career prosecutor who knows how to prosecute criminals.
It's embarrassing
just
to
be
listen
clear,
to.
today, it seems like the Republicans have not really fought very much about whether or not Trump was guilty or not. In fact, their fight seems to be over whether or not you were authorized to prove their guilt. Do you recall a number of Republican members asking about whether or not your appointment was okay, even though we know that you've testified about the more than 100-year precedent that allowed for your appointment?
I was asked questions about that today, and our position, as we filed in our appeal, is that there was strong support for my appointment, including Supreme Court precedent directly on point.
Thank you so much. Additionally, everybody's been all gingerly here today, but I don't know why we're acting surprised that a man who had close to 90 allegations out of 4 different jurisdictions and ultimately ended up with 34 convictions after a jury was able to hear all the evidence would possibly be committing a criminal act on January 6th. In fact, considering the fact that we are now under the impression that he is violating people's due process rights, he is ignoring court orders, he's starting wars without congressional authority in contradiction to the Constitution. He's enriching himself to the tune of over $1.4 billion. He's shaking down electeds to draw maps that will help him stay in power because the Republicans don't understand that they swore an oath to the Constitution and that we are supposed to do checks and balances. He's also shaking down TV stations to get money. So why are we trying to pretend as if it is out of the realm for this particular man to commit the crime that he committed on January 6th, and frankly, the only reason he ran for president was to make sure that he would not be prosecuted, because I fully believe that you would have put him under the jail based on our long-form conversation that we had. But according to your special counsel report on page 137, it states the department's view that the Constitution prohibits the continued indictment and prosecution of a president is categorical and does not turn on the gravity of the crimes charged, the strength of the government's proof, or the merits of the prosecution. And that, quote, but for Mr. Trump's election and imminent return to the presidency, the office assessed that the admissible evidence was sufficient to obtain and sustain a conviction at trial. In other words, Donald Trump ran for president, like I said, so he wouldn't have to spend the rest of his life in prison. The chairman and other members of this committee have spent all day attacking you and trying to rewrite the history of January 6th.
That could be true along with the fact that all of the prosecutions were bullshit.
Mr. Jim Jordan,
so
the chairman,
two things can be true at the same
how
time.
he was running around the Capitol terrified by the possibility that all those insurrectionists would harm him. In fact, on page 97 of the deposition transcript, you mentioned how Mark Meadows, the president's chief of staff, quote unquote, never saw Jim Jordan so scared. The chairman also failed to mention that he was in direct contact with the White House in the days leading up to and on January 6th, which is why his toll records were subpoenaed by your office. Let me be clear, because they're trying to act like this is Democrats on Republicans, and I guess you are a covert Democrat that knew that he was going to try to steal an election before he tried to steal that election, and so therefore you were somehow put into place. I mean, the conspiracy theories make your head spin, but nevertheless, were you going to subpoena the toll records of every single Republican simply because they were a Republican?
No, we subpoenaed the toll records in the course of this investigation because they were relevant to our investigation.
Relevant. Oh, okay. All right, so that means something about facts. So let's talk about facts. Donald Trump lost to Joe Biden, yes or no?
No.
That's correct.
Okay. In fact, 60 federal and state courts have found that there was no evidence of election fraud. Trump's own attorney general and vice president knew that he lost the election, but he still tried to steal the election by pressuring state officials, designing fake elector plans, nearly having Mike Pence hanged, and ultimately demanding that his supporters, quote, fight like hell, correct?
So, real quick, and I'll go back to, I don't think anybody's really interested in listening to the Shaniqua talk, but bottom line is that I don't know how most of you probably are intelligent enough to know what Occam's razor is. So the most, obvious explanation, basic explanation for what happened to Donald Trump was every single one of those charges that were brought up were as soon as he mentioned or announced that he was running for president. That's it. So no matter what you say, you could say all the things you want in the world. You can hate Trump. You can love Trump. It really doesn't matter. Bottom line, it is purely about timing. And the Jack Smith case was purely about timing. It was politically motivated in order to keep Donald Trump from running for president. It's that simple. There's no other argument to be made by it. It doesn't matter what you say. And so that is why Jack Smith is in front here, in front of Congress. He should go to jail for what he did. And they should investigate who gave him the instructions to do so, because he's lying by saying that he wasn't. He absolutely was. So once again, final, easy, put it all to bed. Timing, purely on timing. That's all it is. You can't argue that at all, no matter how hard you try.
Managed to get his client, Walt Nauta, to cooperate against President Trump and to flip on him. And we know this because Stanley Woodward himself came forth with this information. And I guess my question for you, is this appropriate behavior for a special counsel's office to leverage attorneys' future career prospects?
Sir, I believe I can answer this question, even though it's regarding the Florida case, because we did filings on it, and I'm not referring to anything in the final report. And my answer to you, sir, is that when I was first notified about this issue, which was 9 months after it allegedly occurred, this is alleged to have occurred before I was even special counsel, what I did is I directed my deputies to look into it. We made sure the person involved self-referred it to OPR, and then we did a filing to the court. There was a motion by President Trump's attorneys. We responded and we laid out our position, and our position was that I did not believe that allegation was credible. At best, it was a misunderstanding because the people in the room did not understand any threat to be made. Even Mr. Woodard, in his allegation, claimed it was only an inference. 9 months went by where we interacted with Mr. Woodard, in which we had no hearing of a complaint. When the complaint was raised for the first time, which was on the eve of that indictment being brought, it was raised in the guise of asking the court to delay the indictment while an investigation of it happened. So I take allegations of misconduct very seriously. I would not want any of my attorneys threatening anybody. Ultimately, when I looked at this, I did not credit it, and we responded with our position in court. But we also, it was clear that it was referred to the Office of Professional Responsibility, which is what good prosecutors do in that situation.
Well, again, to say that you didn't consider it to be credible, I guess we have the United States Associate Attorney General, Stanley Woodward, who claims that this threat was made to him, and I don't see what he would stand to gain from not telling the truth there. And I understand that you tasked 2 of your attorneys with investigating those statements made by Brat, but given the amount of publicity and the scrutiny that was surrounding this entire investigation, why in the world did you not initiate an independent investigation into these very alarming allegations?
Well, 2 points there. You stated that you don't, why would he do this? When he made the allegation, when this allegation first came from President Trump's attorneys and then days later from Mr. Woodard, he did ask for the case, the indictment, to be put off in results of this. So there was a thing he was asking for in result. And with respect to an independent investigation, that's exactly why you refer this to the Office of Professional Responsibility. They conduct an independent investigation outside of my office.
Well, let me just say, for 4 years, we watched the Biden administration politicize and weaponize the Department of Justice. From going after pro-life activists to spying on faithful Catholics, the Biden administration showed disregard for impartiality. And this blatant disregard was perhaps no clearer than in the targeting of President Trump. We've talked about it all throughout this day. They knew they couldn't beat him at the ballot box, so they pursued alternative options. And I'm grateful for this committee's efforts today to investigate this conduct to ensure accountability. And while elections are not akin to jury trials, I feel strongly that the results of the 2024 election sent a clear message about how the American people feel about these politicized charges. And I think they absolutely made a difference in those 24 elections. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Missouri is
Mr. Chair, I actually have a UC.
Gentleman is recognized.
This is, let's see, I asked unanimous consent to enter into the record this DOJ press release titled "Houston Man Sentenced to Prison for Assaulting Law Enforcement with Dangerous Weapons During January 6th Capitol Breach."
Without objection.
My second one
almost
is
said
I asked
axe.
unanimous consent to enter into the record an
barely
article
got it
titled
right.
"They Ransacked the U.S. Capitol and Want the Government to Pay Them Back," published by the Washington Post, January 21st, 2026.
Without objection. Gentleman from Missouri is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
J6, tell us,
Mr. Smith, after
give the chat
indicting
your
the leading
background, who you
Republican
are,
candidate
just,
for the
you don't
President
have
of
to
the
dox
United
yourself,
States on
obviously,
August
but
1st,
who you are,
2023,
where are you from?
you asked for a trial
American?
date
Are
of
you from
January
another country?
2024,
Give us
just
a little background about
5 months later. During your deposition, you did not dispute that that would have given Trump's legal team just 5 months to review 13 million pages and thousands of hours of video evidence, working out to nearly 100,000 pages per day. Mr. Smith, you claimed that you acted independently of the upcoming presidential election, and yet you pushed for a trial date ahead of the election. Why such a rush to charge and try
There you go.
and pursue conviction on President
That's
Trump?
all you need. That's the only question that needs to be asked.
I sought to move that case forward expeditiously.
Why?
Because the public has a right to a speedy trial as well as a defendant. That is,
Bullshit.
there is Supreme Court precedent directly on point regarding that. I felt it was my duty to do that. I considered all options. I listened to
But isn't the
arguments.
right to a speedy trial primarily a right of the defendant? I honestly, before your arguments, I've never heard of the idea that the prosecution has a right to speed up a trial and require the defense to review 100,000 pages a day.
There you go.
In order
That's
to
all
get
that needs
a
to be
trial
said.
in before an election.
Case closed.
I've never heard of such a thing.
And you don't even need to have
The
this.
Supreme Court in at least,
It's a
as I
waste
sit
of
here
everybody's
now,
time.
3 different cases has stated pretty explicitly that the right to a speedy trial is the public's as well as the defendant's. And that
You were trying to get President tried, convicted, and hopefully in prison before Election Day. I understand.
That's
Mr.
it.
Smith, I think it's very telling that during your deposition, you could not articulate any evidence that President Trump instructed individuals to unlawfully enter the Capitol on January 6, 2021. You claim that President Trump was, quote, responsible for the events at the Capitol on
All right,
January
guys, let's
6th,
bring down the
which was not
insults,
charged
please.
in your indictment. How do you reconcile that with the position of the department in other GA6 related cases that President
We
Trump
can all get
wasn't
along.
responsible for the events at the Capitol that day?
I'm not aware of the department taking a position that Donald Trump was not responsible. I think my recollection is the position that the department took in other cases is other defendants weren't not responsible themselves because of Donald Trump, that blaming him wasn't going to be a valid defense in their case. That's my recollection.
So on January 6, 2021, President Trump tweeted, quote, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of the country. Stay peaceful!" exclamation point. This seems to show clearly that Trump urged his supporters at the Capitol to remain peaceful. Is that not right?
It's incorrect. First off, that
He didn't send that tweet?
he sent that tweet, but he sent that tweet only after being harangued by people to send something to stop the violence at the Capitol.
Okay, let's get the timeline straight then. At 1:55 p.m., there was a breach of the bike racks at the northeast perimeter. At 2:13, there were protesters breaching the Capitol, breaking into the Northwest Senate window and opening the doors. At 2:38, President Trump tweeted what I just
Right, A6, you gotta bring
quoted.
it down or
That's
I'm
25
gonna,
minutes between the Capitol building breach. Is
I'm giving
25
you a
minutes,
timeout.
that's too slow? Would Trump have been guilty of insurrection if it were 15 minutes? Would it? 5 minutes? How quickly was he supposed to send that tweet to remain peaceful?
My recollection, as set forth in the indictment, is the timeline of when the attack of the Capitol happened, including the tweet that endangered Vice President Mike Pence's life, was different than what you stated.
So that tweet was after, of course, the riot had started. But President Trump also said, quote, "We've come to demand that Congress do the right thing and only count the electors who have been lawfully selected, lawfully selected. I know that everyone will soon be marching to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voice heard." Peacefully and patriotically, is that an incitement of a riot?
Nope.
That is not.
Nope.
Okay. So in November 2016, Hillary Clinton
By the way, Democrats on
disputed
every
Chief
other
for
election when
for
they
years,
lost have
called
said the
President
exact
Trump
same
an
thing,
illegitimate president.
that they need
He
to bring
knows
in
he
other
stole the
electorates.
election as recently as September 2019. Had there been a riot around the 2016 presidential election, would Hillary Clinton be guilty of inciting insurrection?
I'm not going to engage in hypotheticals. I will say that President Trump's conduct was without historical analog.
There were a lot of feds on J6.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleman yields
Mr.
back
Chair?
to
May I
the
have,
lady from Vermont.
Mr. Chair, I ask a unanimous consent to enter into the record the first superseding indictment for Capitol rioter and Oath Keeper Kelly Meggs, who brought weapons and armor with him to D.C. and wrote to a friend, "Trump said it's going to be wild, it's going to be wild. He wants us to make it wild." That's what he said. Okay. He's calling us to the Capitol and wants to make it wild. Sir, yes, sir, gentlemen, we're heading to D.C. to pack our shit. And, Mr. Chair, I have a unanimous consent request. I ask unanimous consent to enter into the record this superseding indictment filed the Department of Justice on August 27th, 2024, that outlines how Donald Trump, among other felonies, conspired to defraud the United States in his effort to fraudulently and violently overturn the results of the 2020 election that he lost.
Without objection, the gentleman from Washington is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, 5 hours later, here we are. One of the benefits of being a freshman member of this committee with the least amount of seniority is you get the benefit of getting everybody else listen to them talk first. I want to start by saying that starting out, I was not real familiar with this issue. In fact, when chairman of the committee told me we had Jack Smith coming in, my first response privately was, "Who's Jack Smith?" And I say that because my wife and I have 5 young children. We don't have cable television, and by the time we get them to bed, we're either watching Netflix or better yet, reading books. So when I came to this, I wanted to take a real honest look at what had happened.
Embarrassing.
And I should also say that, a little about what I think happened on
You're a
January 6th.
politician, you don't know about this stuff.
I think, like most Americans, think Donald Trump was cruising to re-election in 2019 with the booming economy, and then COVID happened, George Floyd happened, a lot of things got changed. But I do think in those circumstances that Joe Biden won that election. I also think, like most Americans, that January 6th was a terrible attack. I think it was a terrible riot. I don't believe it was an insurrection determined to overthrow the government, but I think it was an abhorrent day for America. I also think, like most Americans, it was extremely unfortunate for this country that the January 6th committee was a partisan event, and there was not an ability to put folks from both sides of their choosing on that committee, so there could have been a full and honest debate for the American people. I think it was politically motivated, what Nancy Pelosi did with that committee. And so when I came to this issue with a fresh look, with those kind of my priors and what I got into, what I wanted to find was that in the goodness of the rule of law, that you as an investigator carried this out to the highest ideals, and it was not a politically motivated investigation. And I think a lot about that in the 250th anniversary of America. And I think about what the framers would have thought of this and the state of the rule of law, what makes America special with checks and balances, what keeps us from being a banana republic. But what I was disappointed to find when I looked into this issue and how you conducted the investigation was that it was a politically motivated investigation determined to influence the election in 2024.
Wow.
And I say that
you could be like a 4-year-old and figure that out.
As I look into this, is the timing that you fought for in when the court cases would be held. Now, to my understanding, the Department of Justice says you're not supposed to have politically motivated timing of a court case. But when I look at the timing that you pushed for and the jurisdictions between New York and Florida and with all the other things that President Trump was engaged in, that looks very politically motivated to me, and I think the American people, as they take a look at this
It's obvious.
issue, to try to
I think the
influence
only
the
person
election.
on the planet that
So
doesn't
that's where
believe
I
it
come
is
down
A6.
after today's hearing,
A6,
my
I
own
hate to break
independent
it to you.
investigation, and your commentary. I sincerely hope that conclusion is incorrect, but that's the conclusion I come to. And I think when most people, if they look through this not through a partisan lens, I think they'll come to, they will not be able to get around the fact of how you timed these elections. I think that's really to the detriment of the American Republic and for where we sit today as a country. And so my one question for you, Jack Smith, is are you familiar with the Vietnamese city of Bến Tre?
I am not.
Well, Bến Tre was the site of an intense firefight in early 1968. And after that intense firefight that destroyed the town, a reporter from the Associated Press interviewed a U.S. major, and he said it became necessary to destroy the village in order to save it. Now, historians do
election
not
would tell you
know
differently,
what was the
A6.
name of that U.S. major,
By like a
but I think
lot.
when they look back at your engagement with our democracy in this republic, they will remember your name. And when it comes to the rule of law that is the foundation of this country, they will remember someone who helped destroy the rule of law. And with that, Mr. President,
Gentleman yield
Mr.
for a
Chairman,
question.
I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Ranking members recognized for.
Oh, I was wondering whether you would yield for a question.
I will defer on. I'll just yield to the chairman.
Gentleman yields back. I think the gentleman.
Yeah, then I've just got one UC request, Mr.
Go to
Chair.
you, and then I think the gentleman from Wisconsin has a request.
Okay, this is from Politico, October 20th, 2023. Kenneth Chesbrough, an architect of Trump's fake elector scheme, pleads guilty to the offense in Georgia.
Without objection. Gentleman from Wisconsin, recognized.
I just have to clarify something I said.
Yep.
I've talked to Donald Trump over a period of time. Donald Trump is 100% certain he won that election. There is 0% chance that he believes he lost. And I say that based on private conversations, which just, boom.
Yeah,
So,
A6,
wanna clarify.
he announced
Noted for the
way
record, we
before
appreciate that. This
the
concludes today's
criminal
hearing. We thank you.
indictments
Mr.
and all the
Chairman,
indictments.
forgive me, I
They
just
were a
have one
result
final
of him
question for you.
saying
It
that he was
begins
gonna
really
run
just
for
as a point
president.
of
So you
order.
have it backwards.
As you
Say a
know,
point of order, or is it a point of order or a question?
it's a point of order leading to a question, if that's all
Wow,
right.
that's innovative.
Okay, so it's
I don't think that's in order, but because I'm such a nice guy,
Well, I
I'm going
appreciate
to let
that.
you
It's
state whatever you're
straightforward and it's
stating.
a good faith.
Okay,
Look,
in good
I mean,
faith.
for you to
Because of
say
nothing
that
you've
he
done and
did it to
nothing that
stay
I've
out
done,
of jail.
Jack
That's
Smith
not-
has not
that's
been
not-
able
I
to
mean, you're
answer the
being
vast majority of
disingenuous now.
questions
Like, you
about
can't- you
what's
can't
in
say
volume
those things
2
and be
of the
taken
special
seriously and
counsel
continue to be in a
report
chat
relating to
like this if
the
you're gonna say
stolen
stuff like that,
documents.
because now all you're doing
it's
is really
been
just
said
annoying me.
that the
I mean,
judicial order that Eileen Cannon
we announced in 2022, all these
imposed
things
will
happened
be
after that.
lifted
They didn't want him to be
in
president,
February.
and you
so
know
I
that, and
I
now
guess
you're
my
just
point of
being
order is,
purposely,
do we intend to bring him back
you know,
so we can answer
disingenuous, and
questions
now you're
about
pissing me
volume
off,
2
so.
and about the stolen documents case?
We'll take it under advisement.
Okay, well then,
We're going to
just
see what the court decides to do, frankly.
I got you. Well, then in that event, I've got the signatures of every member on our side who are writing to notify you of our intent to call him to testify in
All right,
continuation
A6, I'm
of this
bouncing you.
hearing to answer all of the unanswered questions about the second half of his
That will
work.
certainly factor in tremendously when we make our decision.
Okay, because what we have a right on the minority day to have a witness, and we will exercise that right.
You're going to call him back again?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
So, and
We'll see.
yeah, okay. I'm citing Rule 11, Clause 2J.
We look forward to seeing the letter, and we'll find out. We'll take it all under advisement, as we said. That concludes today's hearing. We thank the witness for appearing before the committee today. Without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days to submit additional written questions for the witness or additional materials for the record. Without
WM, if
objection,
you
the
don't like
hearing
it,
is
feel
adjourned.
free to leave and find another place you can go. Plus, it's over anyway. You're here too late, and then you're telling me how to run my show. Fish. Thank you, Joshua. Of course. Thank you. Davers, Chad. tell everybody to subscribe, but in order to chat, you should be a subscriber, so I'm not going to tell you to subscribe because you should already be subscribed to the channel. But I appreciate you all showing up and participating. It's an interesting thing. This is, to me, once again, kind of just another show trial waste of time. We all know what this was about. It's obvious. And so it's clear-cut case. This whole thing was about politics. That's easy to figure out. Doesn't take a genius. But okay, everybody, we will see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. unless there's some sort of breaking news. I'll come out earlier. Once again, I appreciate you showing up, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m., if not earlier.
President Trump has reacted to Jack Smith's appearance before the House Judiciary Committee as it looks